Hello all and welcome back to another walkthrough video. Today we're taking a look at some small grid apartments which were built for a build event on our Discord server. The requirements for this one were that all ships had to be survival ready and easily deployable in any environment, so that you could drop this down onto a planet, a moon, or just shove it out of your airlock and it would sit in space, be airtight, things like that. I expect to see required blocks for all of those, so O2, oxygen tanks, maybe a cryo sleep if you're planning on sleeping in it. But we'll see what people came up with. This is completely open to creativity, and that is the primary purpose of these build events, is to share with you some people's creative ideas and hopefully inspire you. Now, DLC and mods were both allowed for these submissions, but I don't think anybody actually included any mods, so this should all be stuff that you can build in a pretty much vanilla setting. And with that out of the way, let's get started. The first vehicle dropping in here is Starfall. This was designed by RadamesAR and Bloodkiss. Nice soft landing there. Good deployment. We're going to take a look around the outside first, and then we'll go take a tour of the inside. I like the way it looks overall. Lots of little details here and there. We even have some faction icons everywhere, using relatively new beacons. I would say new, but someone would be like, oh, those have been out for like 6 months or a year. But in Space Engineers' term, a year is relatively new. Got an attachment point up top here. Let's get our HUD back open. I thought this was going to be an access point, but I guess it's just conveyor access. Lots of little panels. Again, relatively new solar panels. And it looks like it's more or less mirrored on the exterior. I like the color scheme. It's a typical color scheme for those two. The orange and grays does look nice. It's got a bunch of thrusters, and some of these thrusters are still on after landing, so causing a little bit of extra burn because it doesn't actually attach to the ground when it lands. Might want to detect speed maybe, and when it drops down to 0 or close to 0, because it will be jittering a little. Turn those bad boys off. See if that, yeah, there we go. Now we don't have weird nonsense going on. I should have looked at the bottom while it was still up in the air. There we go. With the magic of Spectator, we can see the bottom of this vehicle. It is actually detailed all across the bottom, which is nice to see. It's not one of those things that's 100% necessary, but I do like that it was done. And they have landing lights and everything. Back to first person here. Let's walk up the ramp and go inside. Just a simple button to open that. It doesn't look like they have an airlock. This is the only entrance from the outside as well. So you enter the building straight into what looks like a bedroom. I like all the little details in here. You can open the cargo. We've got some plushies on the beds. Whoa. Shifty from the distant future here. I just wanted to note that all of these apartments were built in March of 2024. That's 3 months prior to the contact update, which added all of these small grid blocks. So we're not going to be seeing any of those, but perhaps that's a good thing because these players came up with a ton of really nice decorative workarounds. Nice bed sheets, lamps, a little robot here. That's kind of cool. I didn't realize that these had access points on the side. That's kind of cool. Flip around to the other side, we've got a desk, again, a projection faction icon. I do like that, and some couches to chill and look outside. I think I would have liked to see an airlock, and it's interesting that this enters directly into a bedroom. But we'll see what kind of other rooms they have in here. Perhaps it makes sense. Oh, this is for the ramp. Nice. I like that. It does look like the door was closing automatically. Maybe the bedroom acts as an airlock. This is just supposed to be a walkthrough, so take my critique with a grain of salt. Mostly this is just to share ideas and show people some cool design strategies. I do like the sound things. The central column here, we've got kind of a control station. Some more control stuff, more panels, lots of these little panels. I think these were relatively new. Storage area, yeah. I like the use of all that. So this is a cryo room, and it looks like a kitchen. They've got a nice table grill here. Cook up some some meat. Lots of chairs for guests. Kind of looks like a guitar. The table. And I like these blocks. The rotating light ground down looks really nice, like a burner. I'm gonna have to start using those. You'll see later, or in the next video, I use something different that I've been using for a really long time for that, but I think I'm gonna change after having seen this. It's very nice. What's on this side? Hydrogen tank. Lots of greebling. Engines, so this is power. We have a little bit of stuff there. 0 days without accidents, understandable. It's probably everyone in this game. On the other side here, oh no, there's a face. Oh, this is the medical room. So we've got some seats for waiting. A little bit of info. Sally AI, beep beep beep. Good day, sir or ma'am. Humans all look the same to me. Beep beep. Nice. A little bit of flavor on that. All right, we've got some info, cargo, survival kit, some sort of control seat for something. Maybe just to sit there and look at stuff. I see a hinge and a button. It'd be funny if that button didn't do anything with the hinge. Ah, it's a nice, like, medical table with a little BIOS readout. That's kind of cool. I do like that. Inside is well detailed. You got a nice bright light above the table. Lots of windows. I love that about this build. It's mostly windows on the side. And I probably would have used smaller windows. I don't ever like using these big windows, but I guess they're nice. They just, for me, they clash with all the small windows around them. So you're like, why do you have all the bars here and then no bars here? I like consistency in my windows, so oftentimes I don't bother using the big ones because there aren't angled big ones that will mesh with it properly. It looks really nice though in here. I do like that. What does this do? Oh, it's just a control thing for sounds. You even get a nice view when you're in your thing. Here we have a control seat that turns on and off beacons, projectors. I wonder what the projector actually does. It's probably a repair projector. We got turrets. We don't have any other control bits. Very cool. I think I might have done a full airlock, and I might have put the airlock maybe on the medical side. That way, when you respawn, you have a way to get out of the ship really quickly. So maybe put the folding down bed here, put some sort of airlock here, and then go outside. So you come in, there's an airlock, you go to the medical room, and then you go into this bit. And the part furthest from the door is the bedrooms, because it's the part you're going to be using the least, generally speaking, actually in-game. I think that's a fair assessment for like housing layout. But overall, I love this design. I love what they've done with it. And it works great. It seems like it drops in. For deployment on a planet, it functions just fine with the wheels. They cushion everything very nicely. And as you saw, it didn't explode when it hit the ground. So that's done well. It does have thrusters, so it can position itself while it's in space, or probably to come down on a moon. So easily deployable. They met that requirement, and it's a very nice apartment. Quick before we go to the next build, I just wanted to show you the PCU and block count. For this one, it is 20,025 PCU and one shy of 8,000 blocks. Pretty impressive. And of course, it does have O2H2 production, oxygen tanks, and a survival kit. So bare minimum requirements at least. It also has a bunch of small cargo containers, so well done. Our next submission is the Habitation pod with speeder bike. This was designed by Mackenzie 117. Let's see how it lands here. Well, a little bit of a problem. Let's see what's going on. I do see parachute hatches up top. Oh, yep, the parachute hatches just didn't have canvases in them right off the workshop. Let's fix that. Trial number 2. So far so good. It does look fairly well balanced with the parachutes actually. And a relatively soft landing. I think if we didn't land in the crater from our previous trial, we probably would have been fine. Alright, well, we'll give that landing a pass for now. Let's look around the outside here. I do like the shape of this one a lot. Kind of reminds me of a camper. perfect shape for printing in survival, and then also just deploying out a hanger or something. Should fit through very nicely. Alright, we got some switches on the outside, on the front here. Let's see what they do. Landing gear. So that toggles your landing gear on and off, it looks like. Nice. Maintenance stand. Little spot to jump up onto, I guess. Access the keen alert system. And timer block for lightning rod. Assuming that's up top here. Looks like it got caught. Let's try that again. Just double tap it. See if we can get it to actually come out. I'm thinking what's happening is the hinge starts turning and the piston starts extending. But this block right here makes it catch every now and then. Try that one more time. Okay, it's not working right now for whatever reason. Let's just set it free. And then we'll put that block back. There we go. Nice little lightning rod. Let's see if we can get it to work properly now. It should go away fine. And I would just change the block that's there. Probably be the easiest way to fix this. Put a short slope in, so it has enough time to rotate upwards before it pushes too far forwards and catches itself. Either that or you can just increase the rotation strength, decrease the extension speed, things like that. Looks like we've got a solar panel on a rotor here too. I didn't see a button for that one anywhere. Oh, and we can see our parachute hatches from up top. Quick little tip on these parachutes here. You don't actually need to be able to see them. They don't have to be open to the surface. So if you wanted to make this look solid from the side, and you still wanted to see it from the top, I do this often with my parachutes on my ships. I put the beam blocks on top of them so I can keep my structural look and still see them. It's kind of a neat feature. They don't actually have to be visible in any way, shape, or form, and they also don't have to face upwards. Parachute blocks can be completely covered on all sides and facing down, and they will work exactly the same. The canvas that comes out has no hitbox or anything, so it works directly through blocks. So oftentimes I'll do something like this. And I think that looks pretty nice. Let's see if we can find this, this thing for the solar panel here. We'll just hijack the hinge. It looks like its limit is just not set. It was set to -3 degrees. So the solar panel does turn up. The hinge is right there, I'm guessing. And I'm also guessing this one collides. So this block right here, which you can't really get rid of, is absolutely colliding right now, unfortunately. In fact, all of these ones here are colliding with the blocks right there. So if you wanted this to be able to rotate, you'd probably have to change the way this hinge works. But it is a neat feature. I do like it. That flips up like that. Pretty simple. Let's go on inside here. I think we've seen everything on the outside, more or less. Another decorative bed. I do like that. Some buttons. This is pressurization. The air vent is over there, so you can see we are depressurized. And when we click that, well, it was airtight. I just broke the air tightness. I tested this before to see why that thing wasn't opening. And it is, in fact, airtight. So ignore the yellow bar. That is my fault. I like the way this bed works with a little TV. You got a clock, entertainment, recruitment, things like that. This is the kitchen area, I assume. Again, we have decorative alternatives for this. Pressing the wrong buttons because I'm using the wrong fingers here. A little bit of a sink. This looks kind of like an oven. We've got some storage underneath and some switches and levers and whatnot in there. Lots of little storage in here. Once again, this is where the parachutes are. You're going to have to hand load those, but you're not going to be dropping in on a planet all that often, so that's not a big deal. Back here, you've got a bathroom, actually. This is pretty cool. I'll flip my lights on so you can see in here. But another little sink. Some hatches. This is where the O2H2 is. And you can close yourself in here if you want. Got a tiny little table. We're going to close this door. I really wish buttons. I really wish you could push the sides of buttons. It's one of my pet peeves in Space Engineers. Situations like that specifically are kind of annoying. Turn our lights back off. Some wire access, decorative stuff. This is where you access the survival kit. And from here you can actually open the inventory of the survival kit, which is kind of nice. So you can do the processing and whatnot from inside here. Do we have access points outside? We have these small ones. I don't think these attach to anything on the inside. I could be wrong about that. But you can see we've got our engine here, an O2H2. This is the intake for the air, so we're just pulling air from atmosphere. We don't have to produce our own, so we don't really need ice as long as we are somewhere with atmosphere. So if we're in gravity, pretty much is the only time that's going to work. Being in a hangar doesn't work because ships don't know that they're inside other ships. So even if you're in a pressurized hangar with this, the air intake won't be working. But anytime you're on a planet, it'll work just fine. Let's see what we have for blocks. We do have the O2H2, the hydrogen engine, an oxygen tank or detector, a couple small hydrogen tanks, and the survival kit. So bare minimum survivability for sure. What do we have for power? We have a lot of small batteries, of course the hydrogen engine, and one small reactor. I'm pretty sure that one's on the bike back here. Let's try that thing out. This is a very nice, extremely compact bike. Looks like it's powered off of one reactor and one small battery, so that's going to be 700 watts, right? 700 kilowatts. And these small thrusters take 200 each, so you've got two up, that's 600, and then if you're just pushing forwards or sideways, you are going to be maxing out your power on this thing. Yeah, just something worth noting, but for how compact it is, let's see if I can do this right. Detach. Ooh, I still crashed it. So we have to make sure to fly this bike, because we're in survival, that it has uranium. This bike is not going to fly without uranium. Ooh, I almost forgot the dampeners, but it works great with a little bit of uranium. It's all you really need. And it actually doesn't look like I'm maxing out the power, which surprises me, honestly. It's a little bit surprising. Feels really good to drive though. I did max out the power for a second there. There we go. Yeah. So if I'm going down, my up thrusters do it? Not sure exactly. But it feels really good to drive for being such a micro design here. Looks cool too. Let's crash it. We gotta get our internal stormtrooper going. And it's now a crater. Oh, some pieces went flying. Excellent. The uranium. That's all we really needed anyway. That's going to be pretty much it for this one. I think overall it is a very nice design. I love the way it looks. I'd probably change a few things around the solar panel here so that the hinge works and it's still airtight. Shouldn't be too hard to do that. And I'll probably put a button on the outside that lets you pressurize and depressurize the interior, because it doesn't have an airlock. It would be nice to be able to save your air before you came in. Though presumably if you start inside, you're always going to depressurize it before you go outside, and then you can just leave the door open. And then when you come back in, you can close it and turn the pressure back on. So very nice. Let's move on to the next one. And that brings us to this absolute monstrosity here. It is nearly 50,000 PCU and 8,500 blocks. This was designed by Bluestone Bot, and it is the ATS M.P.K Exploration B+ hub. So let's paste this in. Hopefully it doesn't crash my game. I'm going to drop this from the sky, but there are some problems. So first we need to fix a few things so that we can make sure parachutes get into all the hatches, because the hatches don't have parachutes off of the workshop. So I'm going to drop a bunch of parachutes in this container. 52. There are 49 parachute hatches on this thing. So there we go. We can see that not all of them went into the parachute deploying blocks. That is because this one is not attached. There are 9 parachutes underneath here, and it's got a block that's just placed wrong. There's a couple places where it's like this. This block right here is the wrong kind of block. It needs to be a T intersection, and it is not. So we're just going to fix this. Don't ask how long it took me to figure out where this was broken, but that needs to be a T, and there's a set of 9 right behind here, And you can see this is a T intersection, but it's just turned the wrong way. So it has to be turned that way. So those are the two minor little fixes. And now we can see that the rest of the parachutes have deployed. Make sure that they all have parachutes inside them. Excellent. And now let's drop this from the sky. Alright, that was a successful landing. Don't ask me why the thrusters were going the entire time. I really don't know, and at this point I'm not going to ask questions. So, I think this is the front of the vehicle. I'm not 100% certain. It might be the back of the vehicle. So we're going to start over on this side, and we're going to go inside first for this one instead of doing the outside, because there's a ton of moving parts on the outside, and we're going to have to jack the whole thing up, so we need to find the buttons that operate that. These bottom two buttons down here work for a little rover. We're going to look at that later because the whole vehicle has to be jacked up for that. So let's go inside. We've got this nice little ramp that comes down. And if I remember correctly, you can push that button and it will turn into a ramp, which works perfectly when the vehicle is not jacked up. It does have an elevator option, but we'll take a look at that when we jack the whole thing up later. So we're just going to leave it in ramp mode, which I think is pretty cool. I like that there's lots of toggling, and we can go in the airlock. Little button there that toggles everything. And there's directions on everything too, which I think is a nice feature, so we'll make use of those. And here we are inside. This is the main hub, the central hub. Lots of decorative things here. This button just turns on and off that. There's a lot of sensors that run things, and if my screen is a little bit jittery, it's because sometimes when things trigger, because this is a huge vehicle running apparently a ton of scripts, it's a little bit laggy when things trigger. So we have yellow buttons, which are lights. The red buttons are all alarm buttons. There's two different alarm type options, so we'll experiment with those later. A bunch more instructions. This explains how everything works, which is nice. We read through that. Well, I read through that already. And this is another airlock trigger for the other side. So let's move into the cryo-med area. We've got 3 cryo chambers. Let's see, one of these is set up nicely. If I jump in it, it actually turns the lights off and whatnot, which is kind of cool. Crew member active. This button here, register crew 1. Interesting. So if there's 2 crew members, then both of these have to be filled in order to activate all the lights and whatnot. So this is a pretty cool system. There's only 1 crew member right now, so now when just this one is filled, it should be good. Can I turn this on? And it works just with the ones that are on. That's actually really cool. You don't have to start with the first one. You can use the middle one if you want. So that's kind of neat. We've got automatic doors, reactors, auto doors on and off, it looks like. Reactor on, off. Hydrogen engine, smart solar. We'll look at that from up top because I know there's a button up there. Alarm mode, lockdown, and alarm mode, evacuate. So evacuate opens all the doors. Let's just try this now. Alright, so evacuate opens all the doors, and it looks like it activates, so it flips down everything, so you can just run out really easily. This one is locked, which is interesting. So we're going to disable the alarm. All the lights are now off in here, which is a little silly. So what if I have alarm mode lockdown? And the little lights behind show what the settings are, which is kind of cool. So when I switch this, see the red is on the bottom back there? Super neat. Lots of little features like that. So now when I hit alarm, it's lockdown, so it locks all the doors, which is pretty cool. And if I go in here, I think, and I jump into third person, I thought it would activate the turrets. The turrets up top, I think, are on pistons. Maybe they're just on rotors. Kind of hard to tell. We'll take a look at that out from outside in a minute. Alright, let's turn off the alarm. Turn our lights back on. We've got a couple lockers here and access to a large cargo container. It says large cargo. Oh yeah, it's the right size. That is a large cargo container. Sneaky, I didn't even know there was a huge one in here. Very cool. I think that's everything for this room. This door is just an airlock. And this will work with an airtight connection because all the angles set up like this. So you will be able to make an airtight merged connection using this. Toggle merge blocks, cycle airlock, etc. Pretty cool. Lights are all off in here. We'll turn those back on. Alright, moving into the habitation section. Again, lights are yellow buttons, so I know which ones to press. Let's just turn them all on. All the different sides. We've got a big heads-up display running a bunch of scripts for different things and labels for everything. I do like that. Hydrogen engine on off. Smart solar. Let's hit that and jump in the seat and watch the solar go up and down. So that's the smart solar. It opens up and I'm going to press it again. Now it starts spinning. I thought it would track the sun. I think it probably could track the sun if you set it up to do so, but it looks like it just spins. Oh no. Oh no, it's going away. It spun a bunch and then it put itself away. Ooh, that was a bit loud. It's jittering, but it's probably fine, right? Over here we've got a cool little sleeping corner. I really like this. This is the light for the inside, and then a button to close it. Sleeping pad. Max one person. I'm pretty sure you could fit 2 people in there if you wanted. Yeah. Stacked. Only stacked. Alright, more cargo over here. Bunch of gun racks. We've got a full airlock on this side, and that is activated with that sensor, which is kind of nice. You can walk in and then you can hit this one to cycle it. Easy peasy. And once again on this side we have the airtight seal if you want to dock to something and merge up. You can turn off the airlock mechanisms as well if you want. Over here we've got a table with some creative decoration. Ah, interesting. I like this. Little displays, some plushies, decorations over here, speaker name, Habitation jukebox. Let's turn it on. Probably didn't hear anything, did you? It was on briefly. Put that stuff away. What is this? Airlock trigger now. We've got a freezer down here. So once again, we have a creative kitchen. I actually like the way this one's looking. Water secured using hydro net material. Interesting. Nice little rack there. That's a nice looking sink using the tubes, the tube lights. Habitation water faucet. Ah! They even have a projector to have some fake water in there. Very nice. Very nice. I do like that. Coffee, juice, cola, and it's actually stocked. Neat. Habitation kitchen vents. I'm not sure where the... Oh, those are right up there. And they're sucking air out, as they should. Activate alarm. They have alarm buttons everywhere, man. So this is our oven top. I've done actually something very similar to this before. And I do like the way it looks. So it's a creative oven. Little stool. I use similar stools in mine too. I like the counter. Very nice. Little access panel there. More little stools. A clock. I think that's pretty much everything for this room. Highly detailed room. We do have some skylights up here too. I kind of wish these sensors were a little bit shorter range. They seem to be going off constantly. Yeah, I might make those a little shorter range, but they're not bad. This is our control station. Let's see what we have on the control station here. It kind of looks like it would be... Ooh! Well, we found the external jack pistons, so we can check out the bottom of this now. We'll leave those open, and we're actually going to lock us to the ground. I think that'll be good. It has hotbar 1 through 9 completely filled. All right, let's go outside. We're gonna look at the stuff on the roof, and then we're gonna look at the stuff on the ground. So we'll open our little thing over here, cycle the airlock. There we go. And this does have an elevator mode, all right? But I noticed that the elevator mode doesn't work. And I don't know what's up with people with these builds and putting stuff in the way, but the sensor's in the way of the elevator. So the sensor needs to go somewhere else, otherwise the elevator works just fine. You can hop on here, you can push the button up there. So the sensor on both the sides needs to be moved, and then the elevators are fully functional. And the elevators are for when the entire vehicle is jacked up like this. The ramps work when it's in normal mode, so these aren't on pistons, it looks like. So they just move around and let you take a look at the bottom and the top of your vehicle. Here's a whole bunch of buttons. I guess a button for each leg, and the mag plates. Interesting. Okay. Are there more buttons over here? Wow, yeah, there's a bajillion buttons down here. A whole bunch of air intakes. You can see the power. Is that the battery or the hydrogen tank? I'm thinking that's a hydrogen tank. So you can see the charge on that. Yeah, it's one of the two. Here's a bunch of hydrogen tanks. Caution explosions. That's cool. Alright, let's take a look at some of the vehicles. We're going to open this little ramp here. And we're going to open the cover. Oh, maybe this does... Oh no, I think we push this button next. So maybe actually this one I should deploy from the crunch down perspective. I know it's detached now, so it looks like a remote control. Okay, but there are seats on it, so I could theoretically remote control this now. Hit Shift K, and now we can drive around seated on the side of it. I want to control it like this though. So we have our camera now. Let's just face that kind of forwards, and then we can drive it from in the camera view. Of course we're on ice, so this is immediately going to end up with me flipping myself. Let's get that remote control again, and we'll jump into the camera view. Ooh, actually, maybe it wasn't a user error. This thing really wants to flip. Holy moly. I think the traction is just a little bit high on it. Oh my gosh. It's pretty cool. It is a neat option to have a little scout rover that you can throw two people on and then control and drive around. And I love the way it's stowed underneath the vehicle like that. Very cool. So that is our little vehicle. We're gonna pretend that that's attached again. I know you can drive it back in there and out of there. Now let's check out these drones. There's two drones parked in the top. Also, there's this really sneaky hatch up top. Oh, I did this last time too. I just clicked through the hatch onto the ladder. It's just kind of a weird thing to have happen, but this is like a control room. There's a bunch of utility stuff in here. Buttons. Intake, outtake. This is for a connector on the outside. And you can see here's some of those parachute hatches that are just snuck in there. And this actually does work, this ladder. I kind of thought I'd get stuck on the top, but you don't. You can actually walk in and out very easily. So that's kind of a neat little hatch. Let's see if we can go inside and we can operate this crane arm and these drones. Well, I could spend all day trying to figure this out, but I think I'm just going to give up here. I'm sure it works, but it doesn't come with an instruction manual, so I don't know how this arm's supposed to work. I'm sure it does work. Everything else actually seems to work on this, so maybe you could figure it out if you really dug into it. Alright, we have one drone functioning now, and we can jump in the camera. That seems to work just fine. It has a camera on the front and a camera on the back, which is kind of nice. The camera on the back will let you steer a little bit. Feel like not all my thrusters are on, or maybe one blew up. So you can actually just project and weld up a new one if you are like me and you just instantly crash everything that people hand to you. Look at that. Beautiful. Anyway, we're not going to do that. The drones are pretty cool. They work. You can remote control them, fly them from inside. They do have cameras. You should be able to land them and do everything like that. And I think that's pretty much it for this one. We're going to take a look at what all it actually has on it for blocks. Just super quick for Habitation. 8 O2H2s, 4 oxygen tanks, a crazy number of small hydrogen tanks. For power, we have 2 hydrogen engines, a ton of batteries. There is also 1 large reactor on this, so if you have uranium, you can power this thing off uranium. Looks like they have everything they would need to survive on a planet, on a moon, in space. So I'm going to give them a 9 out of 10 for functionality, only because some of their things don't work. Oh, it got... It worked that time. I don't know why. Sometimes that's in the way, sometimes it's not. But I think it's a sweet build. Very intricate, lots of details, lots of fail-safes, and instructions everywhere. I wish there was better instructions. Maybe I just missed them for the drones and whatnot, and for the little arm. But other than that, man, this was a pretty awesome build. Thanks for submitting that, and let's move on to the next one. This little guy is the TMC Outer Room Homestead, which was designed by Porridge. I figured we just did the absolutely most massive one out of all the submissions, so we're going to do a small one now, and we'll see how it lands. Well, that was a beautiful landing. Very stable, very soft landing. Let's go ahead and make it nice and flat. So we're just going to go ahead and unlock those a couple times. They're set to auto lock, so here it is. Very simple design. I like it. Got a long tube going up there. It's kind of interesting. And we have a porch. Comfy porch. Sit down here, hang out, enjoy the day on the ice lake. Trespassers will be shot. All right, well, it's ours, so we're okay. Close this door, and here's the guns to shoot people right by the door where you need them. Very nice. Very cozy little interior. Super simple. I kind of like it as a change of pace from the last one, which was as complex as possible. This one's kind of as simple as possible. There's room to expand and do various different things in here. Here's our little air vent. It is pressurized inside. There's a couple air vents. We've got survival kit here. Once again, you can access the inventory from here. That's all good. Cryo sleep. There's an O2H2 generator on this, an oxygen tank over there. And do we have a hydrogen tank? I didn't see a hydrogen tank, but we have a couple engines on the back, and they are grouped up. Coming up top here, we've got access to a top connector. I suppose this is where you'd probably park your scout ship or something. Pretty nice. I could see putting a solar panel up here over the awning or something. And I did notice that there's no way to put your bottles in and out of your O2H2 generator. So that is right here if you ever want to recharge these bad boys. That is where you're going to do it. And leaving this one spot open actually doesn't change the air tightness inside at all. So I'd probably just slap something on here like that and call it part of the plan. Very nice. Little control duct there. Very straightforward. Landed nice. It's got everything you need to survive. Could be a little bit more decorative, maybe a few more colors, but overall I like it. Let's check out the next one. And that brings us to our final submission for today. That is the deployable shelter. What in the world? What is happening? I'm guessing the thrusters are doing whatever this craziness is. This one is listed as a work in progress. It was designed by Task Force 577, and yeah, it looks like it. Looks like the whole landing system is questionable at the moment, but we're going to let it try to land, and then we're going to take a tour of the inside anyway. I realize this video is getting kind of long already, and that's why we're going to have a part 2 video with the rest of the apartments in it. So if you're interested in seeing those, definitely consider subscribing. And while you're down there, if you feel like hitting the like button, it is always appreciated and it does help the channel a lot. If you made it this far through the video, hopefully you've been enjoying them and getting a little inspiration. I certainly have. And it looks like we had some sort of a landing here. Let's fix this up and then check it out. Alrighty, here it is on the ground, nice and stable. I'm assuming that will be an easy fix to get that working properly. We've got all sorts of little side thrusters on here. Probably get a script going and you could do a repulsive landing, not even having to use the little parachute hatches. Either that or you could just redistribute the hatches a little bit to get it balanced weight-wise. Right up front here, we have access to a medium cargo container. That is nice, and this actually goes through to the O2H2, right? No, it doesn't quite go through to that. But it goes to the top connector and to the survival kit. Where is that? Here it is. So you can move things in and out of all that from outside here. We're actually going to look around the outside before we go up and in. Pretty standard looking exterior. I like the texturing of it. Could add a little bit more color, but honestly the color's not bad. It's mostly, there are actually gray accents. It's not all the same color, and it kind of blends in nice. I always like that armor texture, the industrial armor or whatever that's called. So can't complain about that. Let's take a quick look underneath. We do have a connector underneath here too, and that is connected through to the cargo and whatnot. Got an engine, a whole bunch of small hydrogen tanks, and it looks like we've got some leftover blue colored paint. Not sure where that came from. Maybe it's from inside? And we do have different color on the solar panel up top here. Very nice. Looks like we've got merge blocks too, probably about 7 more than you need. But there's merge blocks, so this is to be dropped down from up above. We come inside here and we have a full-sized airlock. I do approve of that. We didn't see a whole lot of those today. We saw a few of them actually, but having a full airlock is nice. Here's the medium cargo container. It is set to depressurize. You got a whole bunch of little panel access points and your guns. That is a event controller, which doesn't seem to be doing anything, and a programmable block, which probably hasn't been set up either. But we at least have the airlock, which is functional, which is pretty good. Lots of little panels. This person's sitting here in this tiny little room playing Among Us with themselves, doing wires repeatedly. Keen Software House version. Alright, inside here we've got the medical survival kit. That's nice. And this is where you're going to access the O2H2, so if you have to put your bottles in and out, recharge those, at least you have an access point to do that. I do always approve of things like that. Right here is all the pipes that go to the thrusters on the outside and the parachute hatches on the outside. Some light buttons. It is actually coloring from the floor here. Some of the coloring went through these blocks and hit the underneath blocks, which is kind of interesting. It's a little bit of a carpet. I like the way it looks. We got a desk here, table over there. This is a little sink here. I actually like the way that sink works. I've never done it that way before, but it turns out kind of nice. Here's the other part of wires when you have to do it. And a decorative bed. I like the way the bed looks with the bed sheet. I would probably use weldless armor on the sheet if it was me. Or actually, let's see. I bet the concrete armor would look good too on this, because that's also weldless in a way. Maybe just the weldless would look good. Either way, I like the design for a decorative bed. These were built, once again, before the bunks were added to the game, so, you know, if those were in, those might be here. But if you don't have DLC, gotta be a little bit creative. What else do we have for blocks on this one? Lots of thrusters, hinges for the different things. We actually have 3 gyroscopes in here, which is quite a few. Some event controllers, lights, AI blocks. That's kind of cool. Those were not set up, but would have been cool if they were. And that's pretty much it. If you want to see the rest of the submissions, including my own, definitely stay tuned for part 2 of this walkthrough. If you want to check out these builds or get involved in future events, there are links to everything in the description, as always. And I want to say a huge shout out to everyone who submitted apartments for this event and all my Patreon members. Your contributions are much appreciated. See you guys in the next one.